Welcome back to the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I'm Go Local News editor Kate Nagel. I'm excited to be welcoming my next guest in via Skype, who's going to be here in Providence next week. This is for the Business Innovation Factory 2017 Summit. We're catching up just prior as part of the BIF 2017 Summit Storyteller Series to get a little preview. Dustin Haisler, Chief Innovation Officer of e.Republic. This is a California-based state and local government media and research company. We'll be talking next week. Haisler has pioneered government use of commercial technologies such as QR barcodes, crowdsourcing, and gamification, none of which had been used in the public sector before. So the intersection of innovation and oftentimes a not a very innovative industry, that being government. Dustin, welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So as I like to ask our guests who are going to be here, and we've had them, it seems, weeks in advance, but now it's upon us, you get the chance to tell your personal story as part of BIF 2017. Can you give us a little preview as to what you might be talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm kind of an accidental public servant. I stumbled my way into government. I was hired to be a city's finance director, and as kind of a tightwad financial guy, I realized technology had the ability to unlock all kinds of new use cases for government and even innovation, which is often, considered an oxymoron when you put it together with government. So my talk is going to center around what happens when you enable and empower people to have a voice in the public sector. And that's kind of a scary concept when you think about it from, a government standpoint. Me empowering individuals with technology outside of, coming to a public meeting seems like a risk, but there's so much value that you can get out of it. And it's really a glimpse at the future of the way that work is being done. I mean, you look at the gig economy and the sharing economy, and we're seeing lots of changes that are really driving the power from a centralized authority to the people.
And so how is it, talk with us about sort of the democratization, the combination with innovation and technology with, let's start with municipal governments. A lot of folks, if they're politically involved, know of such things as sort of community tools, sort of 311 tools to let their maybe mayor's office know there's a pothole, or an e-advocacy tool to let them know about an issue. But what's really sort of the new sort of cutting edge ways in which technology is enabling both residents and industry leaders to really interact with their governments?
Yeah, I think we're seeing a redefinition of what it means to engage your citizen base. So when I was in government, civic engagement was oftentimes, someone that would call 311 and report potholes, or they'd like your post on Facebook, or, retweet you on Twitter. But that's not really engagement. That's not something that drives a significant amount of business value for agencies. Engagements where citizens can actually do more than that. I like to think about it this way. Everyone in our communities, especially at the local level, is an expert in something. So real civic engagements, when you start to look at tapping the collective cognitive surplus of your people and you tap into their expertise. Maybe someone's a great grant writer that can volunteer time doing that. Maybe someone has the ability to validate whether or not something you put in actually works. Everyone is an expert in something, and I think the challenge for agencies today is actually going beyond what I would call the fluffy ways of engaging people and really tying into ways that drive value and get results.
And let's talk a little bit. We had the opportunity to catch up prior to this interview, which I'm glad we did, because of what's going on around the country right now, looking at Texas, at the impact of Harvey, looking, of course, now at Irma making its way up towards Florida. How are these sort of innovative technological tools being used real time, especially in the face of disaster?
Well, I think what we saw in the case of Harvey and what we've seen actually in many disasters that have happened recently is that people will come together. They exhibit something called emergence. They'll come together and they'll create their own new ways of organizing and new ways of doing things. And unfortunately, during disasters, everything breaks, right? Cellular networks go down. A lot of the systems that government puts in place to mitigate disasters, unfortunately, will sometimes fail. So what we saw in Harvey is just the emergence of citizens that came together and found new ways to communicate, to organize. You had people that were checking in safe on Facebook, but you also had the rise of things that we couldn't even begin to expect in the public sector. There was an app called Zello that was a walkie-talkie application that all of a sudden became one of the primary mechanisms that first responders were able to figure out who needed to be rescued. And you even saw the chief of police, Art Acevedo from Houston, use Twitter to put out an open call for people to bring their boats into Houston because they needed the additional, capital resources. So technology really empowers anyone to be able to plug into these situations and find ways that they can, aid in these initiatives. And I think government also has to be cognizant of the fact that they can't control all the platforms. There's no way that you can put in place a plan or process that's going to be able to be used in the event of a disaster by everybody. You have to rely on the fact that you're going to have these ad hoc networks that pop up. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing because it ultimately saved, countless lives in Houston. And so I think it's something that many agencies can take lessons from.
And let's go, to the almost a worst case scenario. Let's go even beyond natural disasters. Obviously, in a heated back and forth with a North Korea right now. If we go even bigger, we're talking about attacks here, whether they be physical attacks here in the country, or even an EMP attack, an electronic magnetic pulse that basically takes people offline. How prepared and what type of contingency plans can cities and states in the country have? And again, let's talk about power outages. We talk about technology helping, but in the absence of power, what do we do?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's something that every agency needs to be prepared for. And a lot of times, I just hear, like if I talk to a city, they'll say, oh, it's something that the federal government needs to worry about or that state government needs to worry about. No, it's a very real thing that will impact every agency. And the vast majority of government agencies across the country are actually small. I mean, the vast majority are under 5,000 populations. So they're going to get hit with these issues. What happens if, they're hit with a denial of service attack? We saw a small city here in Texas get hit with an anonymous attack because of something that they perceived to be as an unjust action by their police department. All of a sudden, their infrastructure was down. So I think the first thing you do is you have to expect that it's not if it's going to happen, it's when it's going to happen. There's no agency that's going to be immune to it. And you have to plan for that in mind. And I really like what Netflix did. They embraced something called chaos engineering, which is where they plan for failures to happen.
Okay.
And they actually open sourced a tool called Chaos Monkey. Not sure how they got the monkey part, but essentially it generates randomized failures.
Okay.
And that may sound crazy, but I think government has to look at simulating the same thing. They have to anticipate that these things are going to happen, and they have to find ways to actually mitigate them. And that also means going outside of their own jurisdictions and finding ways to collaborate with other agencies and ultimately people, because people are very resourceful and very resilient when you actually tap into them and give them the ability to participate and plug in. So I think there's a lot of lessons learned that we can apply from what has happened in disaster situations to things that might be more malicious in nature in the future.
So you just talked about, the anonymous attack there in Texas, really pinpointing one localized agency. A lot of times we see, especially national media, sort of the fear factor news, again, something like an EMP attack. Is there a doomsday scenario? Could something be so catastrophic as to impact the country?
Yeah, I think when you look at technology, we're so dependent on it today. I guess one of the good things about government is it's a very fragmented thing. When you look at, there's 80,000 plus agencies that exist across the country. So if I take down one, I'm not going to take down all of them because they're not all using the same infrastructure. They might have, similarities. They might all be on a similar platform, but there's some resiliency that's actually built into the fragmentation of government itself. And I think, that's actually one of the strengths of government. But it is a very real situation. We saw a run on gas here in Texas just because of Facebook posts that were coming out. There wasn't actually a fuel shortage. It just freaked people out. And it created a real situation here that was scary for a few days. So I think that government needs to think about these situations and needs to anticipate that things will happen. It needs to have a contingency plan that is not technology driven, because ultimately you might, reach a situation where you might not be able to stand up a virtualized, server or something else. You have to go old school at that point.
Well, I appreciate picking your brain about that. And one of the things we chatted about, I don't know if we're going to trade secrets here, but we were talking about Amazon and the announcement today that they are looking at establishing a facility that could employ as many as 50,000 people. Now, again, this announcement was made. Of course, states are all, I'm sure, chomping at the bit. Everyone would want to get an Amazon there. How is the state going to win that? How are they going to say, we have the resources and infrastructure? What's the winning proposal look like that incorporates that technology that will make it Amazon say, that's the winner, that's where we're going?
It's coming to Austin, Texas.
No.
So
as you're like working on the grant on the side over here.
That's right. Without sharing all the trade secrets from Austin's proposal. No, I mean, I think, it comes down to cities looking at some more traditional ways that they offer incentives for companies to locate in. But I think in Amazon's case, they're really looking for technology. They want an area that has the infrastructure to support their needs, that has a robust community and ecosystem around it. And I mean, I think we can take some lessons even from what happened with the $40 million Department of Transportation Smart Transit grant, where you had cities competing to try to get that. And ultimately, Columbus won because of the ecosystem that they had in place and the fact that they had multiple parties, not just government, not just one city, but they had multiple parties at the table that collaborated on this is what we're going to do for transit. So I think cities that want Amazon to come there, they need to look at the same approach. They need to find ways to just make it more than just about them. They need to look broader and look at how it's going to impact the region as a whole. And Amazon put a ton of data online about what it actually did for the region they're in today. So I think that's kind of a hint at what they're looking for in the future.
And what are we going to see from Amazon? I'm going to tack a little bit away from the purely governmental side of things and just go for the tech and the innovation. Of course, see them taking over Whole Foods. There's all this talk. Are we going to see drones dropping off avocados? How much of a game changer is this?
We're a little ways from the drones dropping off avocados, but I think, Amazon, as they go into every different industry and as they acquire companies, I mean, ultimately, they're their own customer. They're looking at expanding their own capabilities when it comes to delivering products and services. And, I like to follow their patents. They've got a lot of really interesting ideas, and they don't start with drones. They start with using your own data to actually anticipate what you want before you order it. My favorite patent that they had was the ability to predict and ship what you might want to order before you actually order it. You can still send it back if you don't want it, but if you keep it, they charge you. And I think if you look at, a lot of the subscription box services, they're doing that today. It would be a very easy move for Amazon to get into that. But I think it all comes down to the experience. They are enabling an experience both through data and through their distribution network to allow you to get whatever you want as quickly as possible. And it no longer takes 2 days. I mean, now they have Amazon lockers where they're shortening the time to minutes to get that instant gratification. The one thing that's interesting to see with what they're doing is they're also moving more into the brick and mortar that they actually disrupted at the beginning of this whole process with what they did to a lot of the bookstores. Now they're operating, grocers, and now they have a physical bookstore. So we're kind of going in a circle when it comes to some of that, but they're a fascinating company to watch.
And the question I always have to ask BIF presenters when they are on the show, Skype into the show, it's that sort of your BIF story. What brought you to BIF?
I have watched a lot of the BIF activity for years and have been an admirer of many of the people that have spoken at previous BIFs as well as this cohort, and really was honored when I got the invite from Saul to come and present. And I continue to look at those that are going to be there, and I'm just amazed at the caliber of individuals and the stories that they're going to share. So I guess you can say I kind of stumbled into the BIF ecosystem, but I've been a fan for a long time.
So talk with us a little bit. You mentioned what your speech is going to be about. Obviously, folks who go to BIF, and Go Local is going to be there. We're going to be live streaming, so if you can't physically be there, you will be, but if folks can't be, we will be having that and talking with folks and talking with the presenters. But just from your vantage point, what's on your plate with e.Republic? What do you have in the pipeline for the next coming year?
Yeah, so e.Republic, I mean, we're the nation's largest media company for all things related to state and local government and education. And, our whole focus is really how do we expand the message of what technology and new processes can do to transform government? How do we actually show people what innovation's role is within the public sector and within education? And how do we get it outside of the echo chamber that it often is captured in? I mean, a lot of times you go to conferences and you have a core group of the same audience there and everyone is nodding their heads and you get it, but how do you actually go beyond that? And so I think BIF is an exciting opportunity because there's a collision of so many different individuals with so many different roles and representations to allow this collision of ideas and this expansion and growth ultimately of that message. And so my goal is to come away inspired with what the others are presenting on, but also to give them a taste of what's happening in the public sector and to inspire them to plug into their communities, to plug into their government agencies, and not to write them off, but to look at ways that they can partner with them to ultimately drive a lot of value for citizens.
And in addition to that human interaction element that everyone talks so highly of at BIF, what are you looking forward to most about coming to Providence?
I have not been to Providence, so I am looking forward to being there for the first time. I'm looking forward to a break from the Texas heat, but ultimately being in the same room with a lot of really great movers and shakers in various industries. So I can't wait, and I look forward to your recommendations on where I should go when I'm in Providence as well. So not sure if y'all have any barbecue joints that want to compete with Texas, but I'm happy to give that a try and tweet out the results.
We've got so much great food here. We're known as a really great foodie city. Of course, I know Austin is as well. So we might lure you away a little bit from the barbecue to some of the other offerings that we have here. And I'm sure the other BIF attendees will bring you to some great places. You can really not go wrong here in Providence. Plus, fall here is just phenomenal. It's really a great time of year to be here, and BIF really is a magical event. So we look forward to hopefully seeing you there. We're going to be, again, there live streaming and getting some of the presenters over to get that real-time interaction. And again, the 13th and 14th, for folks who are watching, who've been tuning in, seeing these amazing BIF presenters from all around the country coming to tell their stories about innovation and what that means, not just for their business, but for the country as a whole. So I really appreciate your taking the time. It's a little teaser. We want folks to get, again, the buzz that we've gotten, again, for the BIF Summit. We're really excited to be there next week, and we're excited to see you, Dustin.
Looking forward to it.
Okay, we'll leave you back to the task at hand out there. Better not be that Amazon application, so put that pen down. And we will see you here next week. I appreciate it.
All right, sounds good.
Okay,
Thanks for having me.
Dustin Haisler, I'll let you go.